I call it America's best kept secret.
For decades, Native children were forcibly removed from their families and tribes by federal and state authorities.
With a swing of the gavel, a white judge said that she was morally unfit to raise her children. And they told her, "You will never see your child."
Abuse, neglect, bullying, torture, and pain.
As survivors heal from the trauma, they fight to protect their culture and communities.
It took 4 generations to heal the trauma that was created from my mother being taken from our people.
To be a family again makes me so happy.
Let us take care of our children. It's our right to take care of them.
Presented by Retro Report, Generation Stolen on Local USA. Watch on World Channel and in the PBS app.
Hi everybody, I'm Chris Hastings, executive producer for World Channel. I hope you can hear and see me today. We're doing a special digital release of a new film called Generation Stolen, coming to you from our friends at Retro Report. We figured we'd do a live conversation this morning with Retro Report ahead of the release. And for those of you who are on our YouTube channel and Facebook, know that the short film Generation Stolen is going to release digitally first this morning at 10 a.m. And it's going to broadcast on Monday. But we thought, because of the news last week, the Supreme Court ruling that upheld the case that is talked about in the film, we would get the film out a little bit sooner so that folks can really dig into the reporting. Joining me today is Retro Report reporter Sarah Weiser. How are you doing, Sarah? We're having some internet issues today.
I might be having internet issues. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I told you. Morning internet.
Yeah. It's great to be here with you, though, Chris. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. So, real quick, before I get into the film, tell us a little bit about Retro Report and what you all do.
Yeah, so we are an independent nonprofit news organization, and we were founded about 10 years ago with the mission to bring historical context to current events through documentaries. And so we've always really wanted to use these stories to help connect the past to the present and really help explain, where we are today and how we got to where we are now. We partner with national news outlets for distribution, and PBS, is one of our favorites. And we have a long history also with the New York Times and have worked with other outlets like the New Yorker and Vice and many others. And now, 10 years in, we're also in the process of creating a new sort of education initiative where we are not only looking towards the general public, but also looking towards teachers and classrooms and students. And so what, basically since the beginning, we have always been hearing from teachers about, how they've used our stories in class. Teach students how the past connects to the present and engage them in new ways. And so what we're doing now is, we're pairing our videos with education plans, with lesson plans that are created by teachers and designed, for teachers, by teachers, and helping to sort of fit our videos around particular curriculum that can help sort of engage students in new ways about some of these topics that might not have, that might be lacking in resources otherwise. And so at this point, now we've created, we're 10 years in, we have nearly 300 documentaries. And we also have nearly 200 teacher advisors that we're working with across 40 states and 25 council members who help us sort of build these lesson plans. And for me as a journalist and as a filmmaker, it's really exciting to think of our work as having these multiple lives, essentially. Not just the publication or the release, but also really having the second life in classrooms. And I think with this particular story, in general, I was never taught about this terrible history of the Native American boarding school system and the widespread removals of Native kids from their homes. And so it's really great to think about how our films can reach people in new ways.
Okay, Sarah, we're losing you for a minute there, but we're gonna come back to it. I think I got
Sorry.
No, I think I got the end of it. We're good. Tell me a little bit about Generation Stolen. What are we going to see when we see this film in a little bit?
Yes, so Generation Stolen came. Let's see. We started this project a couple of years ago. I it basically came about because I was working with Gabrielle Glazer, who's my partner on this film, and we came at this story in a somewhat roundabout way. Gabrielle wrote this great book about the history of adoption in post-World War II America. And one of her sources for that was Bert Hirsch, who, as many people know, we interviewed in this film and was crucial to the passage of the Indian Child Welfare Act. And Bert, had been talking for years about how the Brackeen case was headed all the way to the Supreme Court, and how what a real threat it posed to ICWA, and also sort of how it might potentially upend all federal Indian law. And so Gabrielle and I really set out to tell this broader series on adoption, but ended up focusing and narrowing in on the issues connected to ICWA and the problematic history around the adoption of Native American children in this country. Quickly became clear that the issue of Indigenous child removal is obviously not something that just happened in the post-World War II era, and really extended way earlier than that, through the boarding school era, and also, even earlier. And so, in fact, it's really been sort of a constant if you think about this whole history of the taking of Native American children by the government in an attempt to eradicate Native culture and tradition and languages, and so this we sort of saw this through line that's happened across the generations, and we wanted to explore that in this film. And so what you'll see in the film is sort of a look at this damning history that I think a lot of white people don't know, and we want to show too that this history isn't so far off. A lot of people who are alive today are still grappling with these issues, and some of the people we interviewed in the film are boarding school survivors themselves, and others are people who were removed from their families by social workers, white social workers, and placed with white families, and so we really wanted to show how this history is still present, still with us, and people are still grappling with all of this today.
So just to get people up to speed on what just happened in the Supreme Court last week, the Supreme Court basically upheld the law ICWA. Can you give us just a little bit of background on that? Like, I don't think, June, there's this a flurry of rulings. In this particular case, really was a challenge to ICWA. Can you just give us a little bit of insight on what actually happened there?
Yes. And I'm sorry, I broke up a little bit there with the internet, but I think you asked what sort of happened with the Brackeen case at the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So last week, the much anticipated ruling came down on the Indian Child Welfare Act. It was a victory, a huge victory for tribes and for people all over the country. The whole case stemmed from basically the Brackeens, a white family from Texas who wanted to adopt a Native child. And what the Indian Child Welfare Act does is essentially prioritizes placement of Native kids when they do have to be removed with family members, other tribal members, and then in other Native homes. And so this white family, faced hurdles essentially in adopting a Native child, and they joined with a couple other families and the state of Texas and sued the federal government, claiming that ICWA was unconstitutional because it discriminated against them. Oh, am I still here? Okay, good.
You're still here. The internet's still playing with us.
Sorry. Yes, so basically they claimed that, the Indian Child Welfare Act discriminated on the basis of race, because it, deprioritized them as white parents in adopting Native kids. And they also claimed, the plaintiffs also claimed that the passage of the law in the first place was beyond Congress's power or authority, and also that it was an intrusion essentially on state governments and states, and sort of, and what they were challenging was the federal government telling states that they had to uphold federal laws. And so on all those, challenges, this made its way through the courts. And then there was, the arguments last fall, and this, as the springtime rolled around, I think everybody was waiting in anticipation. And then finally the ruling came down last week, and it really was, it was a huge victory. And I think some people were surprised.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Was it a bit of a surprise when you look at the makeup of the court that they weren't ruled this way?
I think it was a surprise to many of the people we talked to. I think people were really worried that this was going to not only threaten sort of the issues connected to Indian child welfare and the Indian Child Welfare Act, but also sort of broader tribal sovereignty issues and sort of the nation-to-nation relationship that the tribes and the U.S. government have traditionally had, and that has been supported by past Supreme Court decisions and in federal law. And so this was a really big deal, and it was a big deal. It was a big victory.
Cool. Well, I want to just let everybody know that the film Generation Stolen, which really looks at the history of ICWA, is going to be streaming on World's YouTube channel and the PBS app starting at 10 a.m. For those of you who are watching this live, the few of you, for those of you who are watching this on demand, and we're going to go back and edit this up so that we get the full sort of interview. I just want everybody to know that it is broadcasting on World Channel on Monday to the whole nation. This history of ICWA, we've been able to work with a number of filmmakers over the past 2 years, to present a few different films through our Serious America frame. And we are actually curating a few other films in addition to Generation Stolen. You can find those films on our website at worldchannel.org. And we're going to continue talking about tribal sovereignty and the ramifications of the different conversations that are happening across the country on World Channel. Sarah, before I let you go, what do you hope folks take away from this story in the context of the broader history?
I hope that people will learn, people who aren't aware of this history. A lot of the white people that I've spoken to don't know this history. And so I hope that it teaches a lot of people something that they might not know. I also hope it raises awareness about some of these issues that Native communities continue to face today, and all not just the trauma that these communities have dealt with, but also the healing work that they're doing, and all the efforts that are underway now to rebuild and push back and heal and regain what had been taken from them.
Thank you. All right, so for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching live or on demand, you now have a job. We need to get this story out. We want people to see it. If you can go to World Channel's YouTube at 10 a.m. or whenever you find it, and share it in your feeds using the hashtag GenerationStolen. That's going to help us a lot. Please do follow World Channel on YouTube, subscribe to our newsletter, and by all means also follow Retro Report, our partners on this. This is a film that they've been working on for a while, and we are super excited to be able to work with them to get the film out. Sarah, thank you for joining me. I'm sorry for the internet connections, but we will work on that and get a full interview with you and write more articles so they get a chance to get a little bit more, to know more about your work at Retro Report. And as this story gets out and people find it, we really want to hear comments about what they feel about the history and the story. Stories that are shared in Generation Stolen. Thank you so much for joining me this early morning.
Thank you so much, Chris, and thank you, everybody.
All right. Everybody have a good day.